There is a simple idea many leaders carry. If I stay in control, people will be safe. That belief sits at the center of Professor X. Not as ambition, as responsibility. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't demand loyalty. He listens, calculates, and steps in before things collapse. From the outside, it looks calm, organized, almost gentle. But calm like this is expensive, because someone has to hold it. Xavier doesn't just plan missions. He absorbs uncertainty. He feels the tremor of every conflict before it reaches the surface. While others react to danger, he lives inside it, full time. That's the part people miss. Leadership here is not command. It is containment. It means noticing fear early, redirecting anger, softening impulses, sometimes editing memories, not to dominate, to prevent damage. And once you start doing that, it's hard to stop. Because every crisis you avert becomes proof that intervention works. Every disaster that doesn't happen feels like a personal victory. So you lean in more. You monitor more closely. You take on more weight. Not because you want power, because you don't want funerals. Over time, care turns into a system, a routine, a quiet habit of deciding for others. You tell yourself it's temporary, that you'll loosen your grip when things stabilize. But things never fully stabilize. There is always another fragile mind, another volatile future, another choice that feels safer if you make it yourself. And slowly, almost without noticing, you become the emotional infrastructure of everyone around you. They lean, you hold. They break, you absorb. And somewhere in that process, something personal starts to disappear. Because when you're busy carrying everyone else, there's very little room left to ask who is carrying you right now, in this quiet moment. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Control rarely starts as control. It starts as fear. Fear of chaos, fear of loss, fear of being the one who didn't act soon enough. So you begin by helping. You step in when someone hesitates. You smooth over conflicts. You anticipate problems before they grow teeth. At first, it feels generous, responsible, necessary, and often it is. But there's a psychological shift that happens when you become the person who always fixes things. People stop sitting with their own discomfort. They wait. They stop learning how to regulate themselves. They outsource it. And you, meanwhile, start carrying timelines that aren't yours. Emotional weather that doesn't belong to you, futures you feel personally accountable for. Because if you can prevent harm, then not preventing it starts to feel like negligence. That's how control becomes a strategy for managing anxiety. Not theirs, yours. You intervene because uncertainty hurts. You organize because unpredictability feels dangerous. You guide because watching others struggle is unbearable. So you build systems, protocols, safeguards. You tell yourself, this is leadership. But something subtle changes. Instead of teaching people how to stand, you quietly become the structure they lean on. And that works. Until it doesn't. Because every time you absorb someone else's chaos, you lose a little capacity to process your own. Your inner world gets quieter, narrower, more functional, less human. You stop asking what you feel. You focus on what's required. That's the hidden trade. Control reduces immediate damage, but it also delays emotional growth. And eventually, it leaves one person holding everything. There's a moment that arrives quietly. It doesn't come with drama. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up as distance. You stop sharing doubts. You filter what you say. You become careful with your own uncertainty because everyone else already depends on your stability. That's how leadership slowly turns inward. Not because you want separation, because visibility feels dangerous. When people look to you for answers, you learn to hide your questions. When others lean on your confidence, you stop exposing your cracks. Over time, you become less of a person and more of a reference point. The room adjusts around you. Conversations change when you enter. Silences last longer. People wait for your reaction before forming their own, and you notice it. Of course you do. But by then, Stepping back feels irresponsible, because if you're not centered, the system wobbles. So you stay composed, you stay measured, you stay available, you keep absorbing. That's the trap. Leadership at this level doesn't just organize people. It reorganizes your inner life. You become hyper-attuned to others and strangely disconnected from yourself. Your emotions get postponed, your exhaustion gets normalized. Your loneliness becomes part of the job. And the cruel part is that everyone assumes you're fine. You're the calm one, the prepared one, the one who always knows what to do next. So, nobody thinks to ask how heavy it feels. That's when isolation stops being circumstantial and becomes structural. Not because you pushed people away, because the role itself slowly replaced intimacy with responsibility. You don't lose connection all at once. You lose it in small, practical decisions. One withheld thought, one unshared fear, one more night spent solving other people's problems instead of sitting with your own. And that's how carrying everyone quietly turns into carrying yourself alone. This is where the damage starts to go deeper. Not outward, inward. Because when you spend enough time managing other people's inner worlds, you slowly stop treating your own as a place to live. It becomes a control room. With Professor X, responsibility isn't just strategic, it's psychic. He doesn't only protect bodies, he carries minds. He holds emotional fallout before it reaches the surface. That kind of leadership rewires you. You stop asking what feels true. You start asking what keeps things stable. You don't choose based on desire. You choose based on impact. Every decision passes through the same filter. Will this prevent harm? And at first, that feels noble. But over time, it narrows your world. Because when you're responsible for everyone else's equilibrium, your own interior life becomes secondary. You postpone grief, you delay anger, you compress doubt. There's always something more urgent than your own processing. So it piles up. Not in dramatic ways. In tension, you don't release. In thoughts, you don't finish. In emotions, you don't fully enter. You become functional, efficient, contained. That's the quiet deformation. You're still helping people. You're still protecting them. But the cost is that your inner world starts to flatten. You don't feel less. You feel less deeply. Everything becomes managed, calibrated, kept within safe parameters. And eventually, even your compassion starts to sound procedural. Not because you stopped caring, because caring had to be regulated. That's what psychic responsibility does when it goes unchecked. It turns presence into performance. It turns empathy into a system. And it leaves one person doing the invisible work of holding reality together while slowly losing access to their own. There's a line most people never notice when they cross it. It's the moment helping others starts replacing taking care of yourself. Not dramatically, quietly. You skip rest because someone needs guidance. You postpone your own processing because there's another crisis. You tell yourself you'll deal with your feelings later. Later rarely comes. At first, this looks like dedication, commitment, maturity. But slowly, your inner life becomes negotiable. You stop checking in with yourself. You measure your worth by usefulness. You begin to exist primarily in response to other people's needs. That's not altruism anymore. That's erosion. Because when every ounce of energy goes outward, something essential gets starved. You don't notice it right away. You're too busy being reliable, being present, being the one who holds things together. But inside, your world starts shrinking. You lose small pleasures. You lose spontaneity. You lose the ability to sit with uncertainty without immediately trying to fix it. Everything becomes task-oriented. You don't ask, what do I need? You ask, what's required next? That's how self-abandonment sneaks in, wearing the mask of responsibility. Not as selfishness, as sacrifice. And the hardest part is that nobody tells you to stop. People thank you. They depend on you. They feel safer because you're there. So the system rewards the behavior, but you pay the bill. Because over time, carrying everyone else becomes your identity. You forget how to be held. You forget how to ask. You forget that leadership doesn't have to mean disappearance. And that's when control stops being about protection. It becomes a way to avoid facing your own exhaustion. Not because you don't care about others, because somewhere along the way, you stopped caring about yourself with the same urgency. Here's what gets confused most often. Control can look like peace. When crises stop happening, when people feel calmer, when the system runs smoothly, from the outside, everything appears stable. But stability is not the same thing as healing. With Professor X, the world stays intact because someone is constantly absorbing its fractures. Arguments don't escalate. Traumas don't explode. Futures get quietly redirected. It works. That's what makes it dangerous. Because control solves visible problems while quietly creating invisible ones. It prevents breakdowns, but it also prevents growth. It reduces chaos, but it also reduces agency. It keeps people safe, but it keeps them dependent. And it keeps the one in charge permanently on alert. Real peace doesn't come from someone holding everything together. It comes from people learning how to hold themselves. That's the part control can't provide. You can stabilize emotions. You can guide decisions. You can delay disasters. But you cannot replace inner work. Eventually, every system built on one person's vigilance reaches the same limit. The carrier gets tired, not all at once, gradually, through accumulated nights without rest, through choices made on empty reserves, through compassion that starts running on habit instead of presence. That's when you realize something uncomfortable. You were trying to protect everyone from pain, but you were also protecting yourself from letting go. Because letting go means trusting others with their own lives. It means allowing mistakes, allowing discomfort, allowing growth that doesn't happen on your schedule. Control feels safer. Peace feels riskier. But only one of them actually leads somewhere. And maybe that's the quiet lesson here. Leadership isn't about carrying everyone forever. It's about teaching people how to carry themselves even when you're no longer holding the center.